is Abraham Kocha, and I'll be teaching you about tennis. So, what is tennis? Tennis is essentially a sport where you play with a racket and you hit an empty rubber ball that has felt on it across the court to ultimately win a point and to further win the match. I'll be going over how to win this match in our other slides, but you have a set of strings that you can pick out for each racket, and it depends on the player and your play style. So there are four main types of balls when you start off. There's a red ball, there's an orange ball, green ball, and yellow ball. There are 20 different brands that make these tennis rackets. We're very unique to the person that play, and so there are multiple options you can choose from. And tennis can either be played singles, that is 1v1, doubles, 2v2, or mixed doubles. Singles usually played across the same gender, and doubles can be either played with the same gender or one of each on each team. For men's, they usually play a best of 5 sets, and for women's, they play a best of 3 sets. So let's go over the types of balls. So when you're starting off tennis, you usually use a red ball. A red ball is the easiest to hit as it is soft and doesn't bounce too high and isn't hard when you hit. An orange ball is somewhat similar, it's a lot smaller compared to a red ball, and it bounces a bit higher. This is used to teach the kids spin so they can get the top spin that they need. Green ball is more similar to a yellow ball than it is to an orange ball, and it's just a harder ball, but it's essentially just an orange ball. And yellow ball is the most common and like the people use the most. It's what you think of when you think of a tennis ball. So there are a bunch of lines, but there are 5 main lines on each court. As you can see here, on our baseline is our furthest line on the court, and is the line that breaks the entire court. The service line is in halfway through the court, and it separates the box that you can serve in. There's a doubles alley for doubles because when you're playing doubles, the court is a lot larger than when you play singles. And in singles, if you hit in the doubles alley, it's considered out. And for the tee line, it's the divider between the two service boxes. So when you're on one side, you usually serve diagonal to the side that you are playing. And the service box, you have to land the ball inside the service box for the serve to count as in. So let's go over the point system. So in tennis, both players start at love all or 0-0. And the score goes up from 15 to 30 and 40, and then after you win a point on 40, you win the match. If, however, both players get to 40, you play something called a deuce, and that is when you have to win 2 points in a row. And so there are a bunch of games. These are called games. A game of 0 to 40 is called a game, and you play 6 of those to count as one set. As I mentioned earlier, men's play 5 sets and women's play 3 sets. So it's a first to 6 games. And if both players reach 5, then you play first to 7. And if both players reach 6 all, then you play a tiebreaker. And how a tiebreaker works is a little bit confusing. So a tiebreaker is essentially when you play one serve and you play 1 point each time. So you flip a coin, and whoever has or calls and gets to serve or receive. And the first person that serves only gets to serve first. And then the other person, they alternate serves, and then the other person gets to serve twice, and then you keep alternating. And every 6 points, after a total of 6 points have been played, you switch sides. Here are some important rules that aren't set in stone, but are pretty much essential around tennis for when you touch the net. So if you touch the net in between or in the middle of a point, you automatically have to resign that point, and it's given to the opponent. Unless the ball bounces twice. You cannot touch the net before the ball has touched the ground twice, or else it's called as a violation, and the other opponent is given the point. Foot faults. Foot fault is when you're serving and your foot crosses the line. It's very common in other sports such as volleyball. But if your foot crosses the line and you serve and it goes in, the point does not count because you have gone into the court and you cannot serve within the court. You have to serve outside of the court. But, however, if you make contact with the ball and land inside the court, that is completely fine. You just cannot have your foot inside of the court before you have made contact. A let is when there's a disturbance on the court. For example, if a ball rolls on the court while you're in the midst of a point, you can call let and you replay that point from the start. It also is also considered when the service touches the net strap and goes over and lands inside the service box. That is considered a let, and they are given that same exact serve again. So if I hit a first serve and it hits the net strap and goes into the service box on the other side, I am given a first serve again. And if I have a second serve and it hits the net strap and goes onto the other side service box and lands in, I'm given a second serve. And integrity is one of the most important things you can have in tennis. Since pro matches aren't very common and all of the levels below pro don't have a chair umpire or lines judges. And it's really important to have a fair and equal play between both players because if one player is cheating, that gives a unfair advantage to them, and it's not really fun when they win. It's not cool at all. So you might have heard of these big three players, and these three players are the biggest players in tennis history, most likely the best players in tennis history, and they are Novak Djokovic, Roger Federer, and Rafael Nadal. Roger Federer is most likely the most famous out of these three, as he is an iconic tennis symbol, but all of these three have shown their dominance on the court. For the past 17 years, recently broken by Alcaraz, which tennis fans may know, they have been the top three players since 2004 to 2021. They have been the top three players in the world. 17 years. That is absolutely wild. And each of them have over 20 Grand Slams, and there's 4 Grand Slams. One is Australian Open. 2 is Roland. It's the clay courts. 3 is Wimbledon. 4 is the US Open. And these are the big 4 tournaments that these pro tennis players play. So Djokovic is a Serbian tennis player, and he started playing when he was around 19 years old is when he went pro. And he was born on May 2nd, 22nd, 1987. And he currently has the most Grand Slam titles in the world and in tennis history. Roger Federer, unfortunately, has retired for the past 2 years or so. He started playing and won his first Grand Slam title at 19 years old. And he is often considered the king of grass, or somewhat, since he has the most titles in Wimbledon, as he has 8 titles. Out of his 20 Grand Slam titles, 8 of them are won at Wimbledon, which is absolutely insane. Rafael Nadal, also considered the king of clay, is a Spaniard and started playing around the same age as Roger, around 15, 16 years old. He started playing in the big tournaments, but he won his first tournament at around 18, 19. And they even have a statue of him at the clay court tournament. So that just shows his dominance over. And thank you for watching, and come back and watch some Abhi Kotra tennis videos soon.